Something of a first for me and the channel here. We're going to be covering today a film from 88 Films. It's my first 88 Films pickup, and the reason I picked it up is because it's their first foray into the 4K Blu-ray format, so I thought it'd be rude not to. And it's a film I've never seen before, and that film is Steve Wang's Drive from 1997. Spoiler, it's not going to be the last 88 Films Blu-ray that I pick up, 4K or otherwise. So if you're hitting the channel up for the first time, I'm Andy, Electric Geek, and on this channel I mainly cover 4K Blu-ray reviews, but I do cover all things physical media really. I do a bit of home cinema and I do a bit of gaming as well. So if you're hitting it up for the first time and you like what you see, then please consider hitting that subscription button and put your notification bell on so you don't miss my new content when it drops. So the way this video is going to go is that I'm going to speak about the movie briefly for a few minutes. If you haven't seen it before, don't worry, it's going to be spoiler free, and then we'll be getting into the video and audio quality of the 4K transfer itself. And at the end, I'll give you my verdict as to whether or not you should pick this 4K Blu-ray up from 88 Films, whether it's worth the $24.99 and if you should be adding it to your collection or not. But before we get into that, I'll just briefly talk about the release. So just the release itself I think is really cool. You'll see the little video that I've done here. You get your typical Amaray Blu-ray case with the black spine of course, but you also get this really nice cardboard cover to go over the top of it. It has a little bit of kind of spot gloss on it and it's a really nice finish on it. It just gives it that little bit more of a premium feel, which you'd expect from a boutique label like 88 Films. Inside you also get a little poster which is of the newly commissioned artwork that you can see on the cover itself, and much like Arrow Films, they also do alternate artwork on the inside. So when I say alternate artwork, I mean the original artwork, so that's the alternate, and then if you flip it inside out like I have here, you'll see the kind of original DVD or Blu-ray art cover for the movie. I like stuff like that. I just think, you know, you should be getting a little bit more when you venture into the premium label, so I think it's a really nice touch from 88 Films. I won't talk about what's on the disc special features wise because I will cover that in detail towards the end of the video. But firstly, let's have a wee chat about the movie itself. Like a sort of mashup of Robocop, Iron Man and Lethal Weapon with added kung fu, this unashamed hybrid genre piece will keep you hooked with its thriller-minute pace and fabulous science fiction premise. What is not to love about that? If you watch the channel, you'll know that Robocop is a big favourite of mine. It's probably my second favourite film of all time, and who doesn't like Iron Man and the Lethal Weapon franchise? But yeah, much like the title Drive alludes to, it's basically one big chase film. So we've got Mark Dacascos, and his kind of buddy cop throughout the film is played by Kadeem Hardison, who plays Malik in the movie. So Mark Dacascos plays this Hong Kong special agent, if you like, who's undergone, I think against his will, this kind of biogenic transplant where he now has a kind of machine-like heart which gives him special abilities, kind of superhero-like abilities. He's against what the Chinese government, who have recently taken over Hong Kong, because remember this is set in 1997, plan to do with him, and he kind of goes on the run. So the film starts off with him smuggling his way into San Francisco Bay on a cargo ship, and then he kind of goes on the run from there, and he batters everybody in his way basically. He eventually bumps into the character Malik, who's a kind of down in his luck dude, run-of-the-mill guy, and they form this kind of, at first, uneasy alliance, and then it becomes a kind of buddy movie from then on. They're pursued by this kind of larger-than-life gun for hire called Madison and his crew of kind of mercenaries, and they provide the punch bags for Dacascos for the rest of the movie basically. But yeah, the science fiction premise is really quite cool, and the kind of mix of genres makes it quite a unique movie. It's done on a low budget, was directed by Steve Wang. If you don't know Steve Wang, he directed probably most notably the Guyver movies, so the Guyver and the Guyver Dark Hero. Kind of bit of trivia, which I only noticed actually when I was doing the stills for the review part of the video, is that David Hayter, who played the Guyver in the Dark Hero and is probably more known for his voice acting talents because he provided the voice of the legendary computer game character Solid Snake from the Metal Gear Solid franchise. You see on the screen now, he makes a little cameo in the movie, which I totally missed until I was going through and reviewing shots to use for the review side of things. But yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. So if you're into Metal Gear Solid and you like the Guyver films, then you'll get that wee cameo to look forward to in Drive. I really enjoyed it. I think I gave it a 3.5 or a 4 on Letterboxd. I can't really remember. I should have gave it a 3.5 or a 4 if I didn't. But yeah, I can't recommend Drive enough. It's really good. The fight scenes are fantastic. I've never actually seen Mark Dacascos in anything else other than his appearance as the kind of villain in the most recent John Wick film, John Wick 3. He's not got as much hair as he has in Drive 1997, a bit like myself. He's follically challenged now, but he's really good. He does, I would say, probably 90% of the stunts himself. But yeah, Great film, if you haven't seen it, thoroughly recommend it. If you like The Matrix, I would say the third act is very similar, albeit low budget and nowhere near as good, but it definitely has similarities with the kind of end fight between Neo and Agent Smith. I'll not say any more than that, but you can watch it, and if you think I kind of called that one right, then you can let me know in the comments section below. But enough about the movie, let's talk about the video and audio quality. When it comes to the kind of technical side of this 4K release, 88 Films have definitely swung from the fences with this one. It's clear to see, I think anyway, that they're trying to get a great start into the 4K format. Reason being because they've got everything going on it. They've done a brand new 4K scan of the original camera negative for the extended cut only. They've also provided HDR in the form of Dolby Vision, and for the audio they've included Dolby Atmos as well. Now for a film that's a kind of, you could argue is a kind of B movie, low budget movie, they've certainly thrown all the tech spec at it, so that gets me on board straight away. With regards to the disc itself, it's a triple layered disc as well, so the bit rates are really high. You can see on the image on the screen here, it usually floats around the kind of 70 to 80 megabits per second, but it never really drops below 50, I would say, and sometimes even busts 100. So that's the benefit of that triple layer type disc. But when it comes to the video presentation, I'll say straight off the bat that I was very impressed. Now, I haven't seen this film before. I can only imagine what it would have looked like in the old DVDs and God, when it was broadcast on the TV years ago. Without being disrespectful to this movie, I just don't think it is any right looking as good as it does. It's obviously been done on a budget, and you could argue it's a kind of B movie, and it just shouldn't look as good as it does, but it really is pretty impressive. Obviously, they've done a 4K scan of the negative, and the Dolby Vision grading is really playful, and the movie itself is a kind of action comedy. It's really light-hearted, and I think that the grading is reflective of that. It's very vibrant, very colourful. I would say they've been very aggressive with it wherever they can. So the kind of most notable use of Dolby Vision, I would say, is with all the bullet hits, which are done in that kind of like electric spark way. There's loads of them in the film. It's an action film at the end of the day. There's plenty of explosions, and towards the end, the third act of the film, the kind of final showdown, if you like, happens within a space-themed bar. I think it's called Apollo 14 or something, and it's just littered with neon lights everywhere. So it's a playground for Dolby Vision, and that scene looks fantastic. It's really evident the use of HDR there. The dynamic contrast is great. As I've alluded to before, if you watch my videos, I always watch my movies, review them, and I take the pictures that I show on screen with Dolby Dark enabled. However, when I jump between the two, as you'll see, I've actually taken some pictures with Dolby Vision Bright on. The difference is very noticeable, but it's not as much of a jump as it is when I do this with other Blu-rays that I've used. And I think it's actually very vivid and vibrant, even on dark. So that kind of gives you an idea of how kind of playful this HDR grading is, I think. But when it comes to the 4K resolution, I think that's the only bit that it kind of falls down on a little bit, and I think that's more to do with the fact that it is a kind of B movie, and I don't think the negative, the master negative, if it's even the master they're using here, has been looked after, as well as, say, you know, something a bit more famous or a bit more known, you know, like Jaws or whatever. That'll be kept in like an airtight room. It'll be checked on every hour to make sure it's all right and it's still pristine. But I don't think Drive's negatives had the same love and attention, because there are quite evident vertical lines that run through it, and they're most obvious whenever there's a light background. So it's very noticeable straight away, because the opening shot in San Francisco happens during the day, and it's a kind of overcast and at times blue sky, and that's when these lines are first noticeable, and you can notice them throughout the whole movie. So I don't think it's anything to do with, I don't think it's the grain structure. I think it's just that the negative that they've used is maybe well worn, and it just has some worn marks on it. That's my best analysis, having done a quick Google search. But if there's any projectionists out there, or people that are just very knowledgeable about film, particularly negatives, then you can comment below and let me know what may have been the cause of that. So that's a little bit distracting at times. I kind of notice things like that, but I know it's not 88's fault, or I think it's not 88's fault, but just be mindful of that if you're someone who has quite a kind of keen eye and gets a little bit distracted or upset with stuff like that. But obviously there's a grain structure there, and it is quite strong at times, but it makes the film look nice and filmic, and I didn't have a problem with the grain structure other than these vertical lines, which are sometimes evident, as I've just said. But yeah, the video presentation of Drive, given that it's a low budget movie, I think is absolutely fantastic. I think I would give it 4.5. I was that impressed with it. I think they've done a fantastic job, 88 Films, visually with this movie, and I think to give it anything less than that would be unfair. On to the audio, and we have a Dolby Atmos upmix here. So there's 3 tracks on it. There's actually a bit of a typo on the box itself. I think on the box itself it says there's Atmos, DTS HD Master Audio 5.1, and a 2-channel linear PCM track. I don't actually think there is a linear PCM track, it's actually a DTS HD Master Audio 2.0 track. Not a biggie, but I just thought I'd point it out because when I go into the menu itself, I can't find that linear PCM track anywhere. I only listen to Dolby Atmos. Admittedly, I did not try out the 5.1 or the 2 channel because I've got an Atmos set up, so I was more keen to listen to that. And it's very good. I'm not going to say it's fantastic and like that. It's very front heavy, and yes, there's plenty of atmospherics, but it's not the most dynamic mix. What I did notice was that it's got loads and loads of bass. At times there just seems to be bass for no real reason, like proper thumping to the point where I actually had to turn down my subwoofer a little bit because I just thought sometimes it was a little bit distracting with the soundtrack. It just didn't need to be as bassy as that. But you know, at least I've definitely done something with it because, as I say, I had to actually adjust the volume. But yeah, maybe a little bit over aggressive with the bass, I would suggest. As far as the height channels go, I think it's mainly just atmospherics. It's an older movie, obviously. It's always the case when they try to apply Atmos to something that was done years ago. It was never, the sound was never designed with that in mind, and they're doing their best with it. But I have to say, I was impressed with it. The sound is nice and clear, and I had absolutely no problems with it. I listen to my movies on 15, as I've mentioned before, if you watch the channel, and I actually had to turn it down a little bit. That's how kind of loud and in your face this soundtrack is. So you won't have any issues hearing the dialogue or the action in this film. So for the audio, as much as the Dolby Atmos is nice, I'm going to give it 3 out of 5 because I think at times it's just a little bit over the top with the bass, and it's not the most dynamic, certainly to my ears, even though it is supposed to be Dolby Atmos. So I think 3 out of 5 is a fair score for the audio. When it comes to special features, there is a nice helping on this release. We actually get 2 cuts to the film. The extended cut, which runs in at 118 minutes, is the only one that's in 4K and has the Dolby Vision gradient and the Atmos soundtrack. However, you do get the original cut, which is in 1080p, and it's not in 24 frames per second either. It runs at 60p. It's got an alternative music score, and it comes in at 100 minutes. I haven't watched that one. Normally I would watch the original cut when there's 2 cuts on a film when I pick it up, but obviously I was reviewing the 4K one, so I was forced to go with the extended director's cut on this occasion. I'll put the special features up on the screen just now so you can have a look for yourself. I've not actually had a chance to watch any of them, but there are plenty there. So there's a director's commentary from Steve Wang, as well as a fight choreographer, and Mark Dacascos and Kadeem Hardison. So pretty much everyone you'd want to hear from with regards to the movie, really, as well as all the usual, you know, there's featurettes, interviews with the actors, there's deleted scenes as well. Tell I have actually watched the deleted scenes. There's nothing really all that interesting on it. There is a outtake from the main fight at the end, but it's nothing really that notable. But there's about 8 minutes worth of deleted scenes, which they're kind of worth watching, but I can see why they chopped them from the film, basically. The original trailer, and then it says here the reversible sleeve, which I covered earlier. But yeah, plenty of special features. Not the most special features I've ever seen, but certainly plenty there, given that it is a kind of low-budget movie. So you've probably guessed, given what I've said about the video and the audio, that I like this release from 88 Films, and that yeah, I'm going to recommend it to you. I would give it a solid 4 out of 5. I think visually it's stunning for a low budget movie. It's a fantastic entry into the 4K format for 88 Films. Audio is a little bit lackluster, but I think that's more to do with just the original source, and Dolby Atmos can be sometimes a little bit underwhelming when it's applied to an older movie. But nothing wrong with the audio, and what is lacking in the audio is certainly made up for with the video presentation. I think the overall package, the artwork, the cardboard box over it, you get the little movie poster inside, and the special features that I've just covered, I think it's more than worth your $24.99. The film itself was really good also, and definitely worth checking out if you're into sci-fi and kung fu action. It's a fantastic splice of the two. But even though it does look fantastic, it's not like demo worthy. There's far better, newer and kind of older classics out there. If you wanted to show off the format to your friends, you probably aren't going to stick Drive in. Although I think anyone would be surprised at how good it looks for a low budget movie. So given that it's not an absolute out and out classic, I can understand if you maybe didn't want to pay $24.99 even if I think it's worth it. So my advice to you would be kind of wait for a HMV sale or something. Labels like 88 Films often have, you know, a 2 for 30 or a 2 for 20, whatever it may be. So I'm quite sure Drive will be in a sale in the near future. But if you pay the $24.99, you're not going to be disappointed. So that's it for my review of Drive. Let me know what you think of the movie itself in the comments below, and if you picked it up, what do you think of the 4K transfer? As I said at the beginning of the video, it was actually my first 88 Films pickup. If you're an avid collector and you have loads and loads of 88 films and you're a bit of an expert, please let me know, recommend down below where I should go next, because I definitely want to pick up more. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts. I've been Andy Electric Geek. Keep buying and watching 4K movies, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. When it comes to the kind of technical side of this release, 88 Fences, edit.